Hi, I'm Kurt Waldrop, and welcome to Radical Freedom. Earlier this year in Charlottesville, Virginia, a rally was held by a group called Unite the Right. Now, that name in itself sounds pretty innocuous, and I don't have all the details, I have to admit. But apparently, it drew a number of people that I kind of don't think of as being on the right. That is, the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis. We're going to talk about that in our very next video. Are you on the left or are you on the right? But for right now, we'll just kind of focus on this. Now, as I said, I'd argue that both these groups are on the extreme left. But the question that needs to be asked is, do such groups actually have a freedom of speech? Is that freedom guaranteed to every American regardless of what they have to say? Well, it's true, freedom of speech and expression does not extend to your workplace or your public school. There are dress codes for many work environments. If you wear your t-shirt in that says how much you like a certain beer or a certain political candidate, you may be asked to go home and change. If you go to work, and let's say you're a football player, your boss can actually say, this stadium is your office, and you don't get to kneel during the national anthem. Sorry, it's not protected. Now, they can't arrest you for that. That's what this is talking about. And on your own time, in your own front yard or in your own living room, you can do these things, but not so much at work. So, you know, and if you start discussing religion or politics anywhere, let's face it, that's pretty much a sure way of starting a fight, so we don't want that. Now, in the last few years, places that were once considered bastions of free speech, such as the University of California at Berkeley, now commonly regulates where students can practice freedom of speech as well as what they're allowed to say. Now, this is a place back in the 60s that everybody was screaming, we get to say what we want and do what we want because it's the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Well, now it's changed to you have a freedom to say anything that we agree with. Almost anything said is certain to stir up the ire of some fringe group or further illustrate the victim status of some ethnic group or of a sexual gender that most would assume originate on another planet. What is it now? BG, let's see, no, it's LGBT something, MOUSE? I don't know. I don't keep up with that. I just try to see people as people, but I guess that makes me kind of a mutant. Oh well. You got to be careful to find out if a woman wishes to be addressed as Miss or Ms. or Mrs., maybe Mr., or even, and I'm not kidding, Zir. That's in case she decides she is without gender. I don't like the word gender, though. I like sex, because people can't get away from, if they have two X's or an X and a Y chromosome, that's their sex. When you start saying their gender, that's this nebulous thing. Oh, my gender. I see, for me, my gender, I'm a velociraptor. So that's my particular gender. But, to each their own. Why must you be so careful? Just to keep from offending them? Well, yeah, but it can also have legal repercussions. In California, right now, there has been a law that has been passed and signed by Governor Jerry Brown, a.k.a. Moonbeam, that states that a healthcare worker, at least, who willfully and repeatedly declines to use a senior transgender patient's name, I guess this is referring to in a nursing home or something, preferred name or pronoun, could face punishments ranging from a fine to jail time. So if you got an 80-year-old guy who wants to be called Cindy, and she calls him Bob because his name's Bob, and she refers to him as sir because he's a sir, he's not a ma'am, they could actually face jail time. Imagine that. If you're a nurse that has to deal with a patient that looks like he just came back from Duck Dynasty, but he wants to claim that, well, he is a she, he is a her, you can get in trouble. You have to play their, frankly, rather ridiculous game. So, things that could get you in trouble could be anything that isn't considered PC, such as discussing gun rights, states' rights, anything conservative, disagreeing with laws that created protected groups such as non-Christians, gays, lesbians, bisexuals, blacks, women, illegal aliens. You get the idea. Basically, any group that has decided that they're victims. I find that annoying because I just wish everybody could just be an American. Get over it! Okay, folks. Yeah, there's always going to be some asshat who hates Group A because of who they want to sleep with or what color their skin is or who they worship. But it's an insanely small minority of Americans. Most people just don't care. We want to live our lives. We hope you live your lives. Everybody be happy. It's America. That's what it's about. Remember, radical freedom. Freedom to do these things. So, the First Amendment specifically states, as I said in our last video, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Well, we mostly have those things, but free speech today is under attack. You think the writers of the Constitution intended that only the federal government was prohibited from regulating speech? Well, it's possible. But they might have thought that it wasn't necessary to say, the states had to be included because most of the state constitutions at the time and to this day protect freedom of speech. And a Supreme Court decision in 1940 found that the First Amendment didn't just apply to what Congress does on the federal level, but also to state and local laws. This was mentioned as a note in our freedom of religion one. Now, Thomas Jefferson famously, speaking about religion, again, mentioned in my last video, said that, and I paraphrase, if it doesn't break my leg or pick my pocket, then it isn't my business, or presumably the business of government. But what about such things as hate speech? We should regulate that, right? Well, this is one of those times I feel old. When I was a kid, we had that whole sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me attitude. If somebody said something and it made you want to cry, people told you, you know what? Suck it up, buttercup. And it made us a little stronger, I think. And the generation that preceded me was a little tougher, and the one that preceded me was a little tougher. That means extrapolating in the other direction. 3 or 4 generations from now, if you go boo at someone, they actually may have pieces fall off of them and they may die of a stroke. Currently, there seems to be an idea that anything that offends anyone is actually harmful in some manner. Seriously? This has become the United States of the offended. There is no place in the United States Constitution that says you have a right to not be offended. Again, suck it up, buttercup. Anyway, so Americans need to learn that offending someone isn't a crime. Now, yeah, it's a crime on manners. It's extremely bad manners to intentionally offend someone. Even if you know they believe something different than you, you can just say, hi, how's it going? Nice weather, isn't it? You don't have to get into it. But if you do, that shouldn't be a law that regulates how you speak to people. Come on. It might actually benefit many people if they work to become a bit mentally tougher and not whine and cry about everything that might offend their delicate sensibilities. So, does that mean this freedom is absolute? Well, this was originally meant to protect political speech. Because remember, when we were part of the British Empire, you say something like, I think the king smells bad. You could be drug off to prison for that. That was a criminal offense. But since then, our freedom of speech has become more and more encompassing. And in the interest of maximum freedom, which I think you should know by now I espouse, I say that as long as people are not calling for violence, that the speech should in fact be protected. Now, going full Tourette's in public and just cussing all, every word that you've ever heard, making up a few, well, in a restaurant, no, that's not cool. But I think each individual owner should have the right to throw someone out at that point or call the police. Somebody wants to go to the public park and scream obscenities or perform public sex acts. Hey, I might want to have my kids in that park. Remember, I support your freedom as long as you don't step on my toes. And if you go to a public place and you commit acts that you know are going to be actively offensive to people, especially people with children, I don't think that's protected. Having listened to someone scream obscenities at me, it's annoying, but it shouldn't be illegal. It should be illegal if you go to a playground where the kids are playing and you start doing it. You know what? Sometimes I think enduring idiots is part of the price we pay for living in a free society. So what about the other part that kind of goes along hand in hand with freedom of speech, freedom of the press? Well, freedom of the press is getting weird these days because there's so much that they just make up that has no bearing on reality. Newsflash, they've been doing that since day one. This freedom originally was created right after the American Revolution to protect the press because early on it was being used to criticize the British Crown and to call for independence. Today, with the left in almost total control of the nation's news outlets, freedom of the press is more important than at any time since the revolution, as people on the right use talk radio and the internet to get ideas out. If it wasn't for that, trust me, we just have a deluge of whatever the left wanted to tell us. They would twist things, bend things, and just cover things up. They do it every day. They did it this last week when Donna Brazile finally came out and admitted, yeah, they stole the primary from Bernie Sanders. Not one single mention, not one, on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, PMSNBC, any of them. So we need the alternative news that goes back to freedom of speech and of the press. Many people seem to want to have complete protection from public profanity and of internet pornography, but at the same time they want to regulate political speech, with a fairness doctrine and all that. So as for TV and radio, honestly, I think people should say whatever they want. Let the free market decide what will be broadcast. So, broadcast. I have a speech impediment myself. So, if someone wants to talk about how wonderful Hillary is, let them say whatever they want. If Station B wants to say how wonderful Trump is, let them say whatever they want. Let the ratings decide. Because if the ratings are really low for one or the other, then they can't support it. No one will buy advertising and it won't go out. So I just think that again goes back to our free society with our capitalistic system. So anyway, while we may find groups like the KKK, Nazis, Antifa, and other dangerous idiots to be personally offensive, freedom of speech should always trump being offended by a thought. Only if they're promoting violence, directly promoting it, should law enforcement become involved, because otherwise it's regulating ideas. Regulating ideas goes against every single thing the United States Constitution stands for. Well, now you know how I feel. I hope you go below here and give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Subscribe, leave a comment, and please go to Amazon, buy a copy of my book, Radical Freedom. Forgive the frightening image on the cover. That's what they gave me. I had no say in it. That's not entirely true, but we're just going to go with that. It's Radical Freedom, or oh crap, there goes the Constitution. So get a copy. If you ever find me, I will happily sign it. Send it to me. I'll sign it and send it back. I'm easy. So that said, see you next time on Radical Freedom. Wolfie says, bye.